in interesting times. Today's stories. Erdogan accuses the West of, quote, standing by terrorists in Syria. Iran slams Turkey's military presence in Syria. Chile extends state of emergency as unrest death toll hits 7. China's foreign minister discusses trade with the European Union and the situation in Hong Kong. China accuses the U.S. of, quote, false accusations over diplomat restrictions. President Trump says a small number of U.S. troops remain in Syria. In Portland, Oregon, a high school employee disarms a student who sought to kill himself. Lunch break lesson: how to reverse an opioid overdose. Plus, precision, accuracy, and dependability in broadcasting at the NAB New York 2019. This is Eagle News, coming to you from New York, bringing you stories from around the globe, and I am Jennifer Polantan. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Monday lashed out at Western states, accusing them of, quote, standing by terrorists in failing to support Turkey's operation against Syrian Kurdish fighters.
Düşünebiliyor musunuz? Tüm Batı, evet, teröristlerin yanında yer aldı ve hepsi birlikte bize saldırdılar. NATO ülkeleri dahil, Avrupa Birliği ülkeleri dahil, hepsi.
Erdogan asked, quote, since when do you start to side with terror? Did PYD, YPG, Syrian Kurdish forces, join NATO and we do not know about it? Ankara says the YPG is a, quote, terrorist offshoot of the outlawed Kurdish Workers' Party, or PKK, which has been waging an insurgency inside Turkey since 1984. The PKK is blacklisted as a terror group by Ankara, the US, and the European Union. Ankara's military action against Kurdish forces, who played a key role in the fight against the Islamic State group, has drawn widespread international criticism and prompted some NATO countries to suspend new arms sales. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has repeatedly voiced, quote, serious concerns about the military operation launched on October 9th to push Syrian Kurdish forces back from the border. Erdogan denied any territorial ambition, saying, quote, Turkey does not have an eye on any country's territory. We consider such an accusation as the biggest insult directed to us. Turkey has announced a 120-hour suspension of the offensive following a deal with the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, under which Kurdish fighters were to withdraw to allow a safe zone to be set up along the border. Erdogan was to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday in the Black Sea resort of Sochi. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, Abbas Mousavi, slammed Turkey's military operation in Syria during a press conference in Tehran after Ankara launched a cross-border attack against Kurdish forces on October 9th, following an announcement by the United States that it was pulling out its military from war-torn countries north.
حضور نظامی ترکیه در خاک سوریه است یا ایجاد پایگاه‌های ترکی در سوریه است، این غیر قابل قبول هست و همونچه که عرض کردم مثلا به تعرض به حاکمیت ملی و تمامیت ارضی کشور مستقل عضو سازمان ملل متحد است که طبیعتاً با مخالفت جمهوری اسلامی ایران و همه کشورها هم مواجه خواهد شد.
Iran on Monday denounced as, quote, unacceptable any move by Turkey to establish military bases in Syria, saying such a step would face opposition from the Islamic Republic and other countries. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Friday that Turkey would set up 12 observation posts inside Syria, as he warned Ankara would restart an operation against Kurdish forces across the border. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, Abbas Mousavi, criticized the planned move in response to a question at a news conference. Mousavi said in remarks aired on state television, quote, the Turks can have any bases and can do anything on their own territory and within their borders. But if you mean establishing Turkish bases in Syria, this is unacceptable. Such a step, he said, would be seen as Iran as, quote, an aggression against the national sovereignty and territorial integrity of an independent country. Mousavi added, quote, naturally, it will face opposition from the Islamic Republic of Iran and other countries. Iran has repeatedly called for an immediate halt to the Turkish offensive in Syria, launched on October 9th after the United States announced it would withdraw all its troops from the area. A U.S.-brokered ceasefire gives Kurdish forces until Tuesday evening to withdraw from a buffer area Turkey wants to create on Syrian territory along its southern frontier. In his remarks on Friday, Erdogan said the proposed safe zone would be 32 kilometers or 20 miles deep and 444 kilometers in length and patrolled by Turkey. But he said, quote, we have no intention to stay there. This is out of the question. 5 people died Sunday when a garment factory was torched by looters near Chile's capital, Santiago, bringing the death toll in a wave of unrest to 7, as authorities expanded a state of emergency. Police and the military fired tear gas and used water cannons against protesters in the city as clashes over price hikes and social inequality raged through a third day.
En el día de hoy se ha incorporado bajo el estado de emergencia todas las comunas de la región metropolitana, más la ciudad de Antofagasta y la ciudad de Valdivia. Y se encuentra en estos momentos en trámite los decretos de estado de emergencia para todas las comunas de la región de Valparaíso, para la ciudad de Talca, para la ciudad de Chillán y Chillán Viejo, para la ciudad de Temuco y Padre Las Casas, y finalmente la ciudad de Punta Arenas.
Almost all public transport was paralyzed in Santiago, with shops shuttered and many flights canceled at the international airport, leaving thousands of people stranded and unable to leave due to the curfew. After an emergency meeting late Sunday, President Sebastián Pinera defended his decision to call a state of emergency and deploy troops onto the streets for the first time since Augusto Pinochet's military dictatorship between 1974 and 1990. Pinera said, quote, democracy not only has the right, it has the obligation to defend itself using the instruments that democracy itself provides and the rule of law to combat those who want to destroy it. The state of emergency was extended on Sunday, with Interior and Secretary Minister Andres Chadwick saying new decrees were being drawn up for the Antofagasta in the north, Valdivia in the south, and other cities such as Valparaíso, Temuco, and Punta Arenas. Firefighters said 5 people died in a garment factory burned by rioters in Renca, a northern suburb of Santiago. Earlier, Chadwick said 2 women burned to death after a store owned by U.S. retail chain Walmart was set alight in the early hours of Sunday. One victim, who authorities initially said had died in the hospital, suffered burns on 75% of her body. Authorities reported 103 serious incidents throughout the country, with 1,462 people detained, 614 in Santiago and 848 in the rest of the country. Protesters set fire to buses, smashed up metro stations, knocked down traffic lights, ransacked shops, and clashed with riot police in Santiago and other cities. Defense official General Javier Iturriaga announced, during the curfew from 7 p.m. until dawn, people should, quote, be calm in all their homes. What started earlier in the week as a protest against a hike in metro fares escalated dramatically on Friday as demonstrators expressed anger over social inequality at the government's liberal economic system. On Saturday, Pinera announced that he was suspending the fare increase. Pinera acknowledged that those in the streets had, quote, good reason to protest, but called on them to demonstrate peacefully. The appeal failed to prevent further rioting and looting. Dozens of protesters torched a building belonging to Chile's oldest newspaper, El Mercurio, in Valparaíso on Saturday evening, while elsewhere a metro station, supermarkets, and other stores were set on fire. China's foreign minister said Monday that he was confident of an investment deal being clinched with the European Union while pressing for talks as soon as possible on a free trade accord. Paris, Wang Yi, said the list of sectors China still refuses access to is shrinking and the country is opening up more and more, thus, quote, creating favorable conditions for the conclusion of a bilateral investment accord.
实际上，我们看到香港发生这些街头暴力，已经被其他国家所复制了。我们看到在西班牙的加泰罗尼亚，我们看到在伦敦的公共设施上，我们看到在智利的街头。西班牙的加泰罗尼亚的一些人就公开表示，我们要让加泰罗尼亚成为第二个香港，要借鉴香港这种这个搞街头暴力的这种做法，可能就是有那么一股势力，他们实际上在鼓励和纵容街头的这种违法犯罪，他们的目标就是要把香港搞乱，来葬送香港几代人辛辛苦苦建立起来的发展和繁荣，来葬送一国两制实施以来香港所取得的巨大的历史性的进步。
Wang underscored China's willingness to launch discussions on a free trade agreement between China and the European Union, calling for a feasibility study in the short term, and emphasizing that China and the European Union are one another's biggest economic and commercial partners.
如果这个进程迟启动不了的话，那么欧盟向中国出口的商品的竞争力就会受到影响，因为越来越多的国家在跟中国签署自贸的协定，而且欧盟也跟很多国家也签署了自贸协定，但偏偏忽略了中国这个欧盟最大的市场，所以我建议欧盟的朋友们，包括特别是法国的朋友们，能够认真的来思考这个问题。经贸合作是中法关系的重要的压舱石，那么大项目合作则是支撑我们经贸合作的顶梁柱。那么这次通过我们双方的努力，总统访问期间会签署一系列合作的协议，大概起码得有30到40项，那么充分体现了这次访问可能会产生的重要和丰硕的成果。
China is engaged in a long-running tariff war with U.S. President Donald Trump, which has started to take a toll on its economic growth. Wang said a big number of contracts, between 30 and 40, would be signed between China and France when President Emmanuel Macron visits from November 4th to 6th. Wang added the two countries, permanent members of the UN Security Council, quote, must work together to convey a joint message of support for multilateralism and a message of support for the authority of the UN in the face of rising unilateralism. We must also send a message that our two countries respect the fundamental ruling governing international relations and together defend justice and equity in the world. Up next, China accuses the U.S. of, quote, false accusations over diplomat restrictions. President Trump says a small number of U.S. troops remain in Syria. In Portland, Oregon, a high school employee disarms a student who sought to kill himself. Lunch break lesson: how to reverse an opioid overdose. Eagle News will return in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Eagle News, coming to you from New York, and I'm Jennifer Polentan. A spokesperson for China's foreign ministry said Beijing hopes the U.S. will face the facts after Washington imposed new restrictions on Chinese diplomats wishing to meet with American officials. The U.S. move was in response to similar restrictions in place in China, where U.S. diplomats require permission from several levels of the Chinese government in order to meet local officials or academics.
我们希望在这个问题上呢，美方应该正视事实，为双方正常的人员交往提供便利，而不是设置障碍，更不能倒打一耙。
In other news, President Donald Trump said Monday a small number of U.S. troops remain in Syria, some near the border with Jordan and others deployed to secure oil fields. Trump's comments followed a U.S. pullout from northeastern Syria, leaving the Kurds, America's staunchest allies in the fight against Islamic State, to face invading Turkish forces. Trump said the small number of U.S. troops staying behind were in an entirely different part of Syria, near its border with Jordan and Israel. He said another group still in Syria, quote, secured the oil, a reference to oil fields that the U.S. hopes to keep from falling into the hands of jihadist fighters.
I don't want to leave troops there. It's very dangerous for, we had 28 troops as it turned out. People said 50, it was 28. And you had an army on both sides of those troops. Those troops would have been wiped out. I don't think it's necessary, other than that we secured the oil. It's in a little different section, but we just secured the oil. And the other region where we've been asked by Israel and Jordan to leave a small number of troops is a totally different section of Syria, near Jordan and close to Israel.
Surveillance footage shows Keenan Lowe, an employee of Park Rose High School in Portland, Oregon, holding a shotgun away from Angel Granados Diaz after disarming the student on May 17th. According to a news release from Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, Granados Diaz received a 36-month probation on October 10th after pleading guilty to 2 counts related to the possession of a firearm. Granados Diaz brought the firearm loaded with only 1 round to the school during a mental health crisis and told investigators that he only intended to harm himself. Keenan took the weapon away from Granados Diaz after. At a small shop selling handmade jewelry in South Philly, employees are skipping their lunch break for a good cause. They are getting the training they all wanted in how to save someone who has overdosed on opioids. The group of 4 is learning how to administer a dose of naloxone, a medication used to block or reverse the effects of the highly addictive painkillers. A mannequin is placed on a folding table in the middle of a workshop where trainer Elvis Rosado, an ex-drug user who works for the local association Prevention Point, is showing them the ropes. The widespread use of fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that is 50 times stronger than heroin, is ravaging America, and Philadelphia is in the crosshairs of the epidemic. Just a few milligrams can be lethal. Rosado says, quote, if people have to do this training everywhere, it shows there is an obvious need and an obvious problem in this country. As Rosado explains, fentanyl is everywhere. It can be mixed with cocaine, heroin, and even synthetic marijuana, sometimes known as K2. It can also be pressed into counterfeit pills. Sometimes, the user doesn't even know he or she is taking it. 54-year-old Rosado says, quote, a lot of times people were overdosing of half of a $5 bag, so basically that's about $2 worth was enough. The result, every day in America, an average of 130 people die as a result of opioid overdoses, according to government data. Rosado says in this relatively calm part of South Philly, the opioid epidemic is progressing. In the city's Kensington neighborhood, people are using in the open. Many users are military veterans, but in South Philly, he explains, quote, a lot of people are using behind closed doors. They still function, they still have jobs and families, and they have somewhere to go. The fast-talking Rosado, who has been a counselor on drugs and alcohol abuse for 25 years, reveals to the jewelry shop workers the first line of defense, identifying people in trouble.
People don't know what they're doing as much as it is that people don't know what they're buying. And it puts people at risk. So, things you want to look for. Anytime you come across somebody who is extremely pale with a gurgling noise, blue, purplish, the word Narcan sometimes wakes people up. But if that's not working, grab their foot, shake it, see if you can get them to wake up, or you're going to go in a circular motion. It is extremely uncomfortable and painful. This is just for you to determine whether the person is or isn't responding. You call 911 immediately, give clear and precise directions, proceed to administer Narcan. Back, you peel, you drop it out. It's one hit, one nostril. It's going to go straight up because it's a mist. Don't be shocked. 90% of the time, they'll look over and go, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do drugs. Don't argue with the person.
The 4 employees of Souvenir Jewelry listened attentively to the presentation by Rosado, who has been clean for 27 years. He has already offered naloxone training to more than 5,000 people, including the governor of Pennsylvania, hundreds of students, cops, nuns, and librarians. So far, he has been responsible for reversing 60 opioid overdoses, but in January he lost 1 person. Rachel Dillon, the 35-year-old owner of the store, raises an interesting point. Can you get in trouble if you mistakenly give Narcan to someone who has not taken opioids? Rosado is reassuring. You can't hurt anyone with Narcan or naloxone. It's always better to do something than do nothing. The demonstration ends in just 30 minutes. Dillon and her employees thank Rosado profusely. All of them say they can feel capable of helping someone in need. When we come back, precision, accuracy, and dependability in broadcasting at the NAB New York 2019. Eagle News will return shortly. Stay with us. You are watching Eagle News, broadcasting from New York, and I am Jennifer Polantan. Precision, accuracy, and dependability in broadcasting are highlights at the NAB New York 2019. Eagle News correspondent Eliza Gonzalez-McLickmott with the details.
Do you know how it feels like to be a kid in a candy store? Well, that's how those from the broadcast industry are feeling right now here at the National Association of Broadcasters Show New York. From top-of-the-line equipment to disaster response systems to lectures addressing issues broadcasters face today, such as, quote, deepfakes versus trusted content, all here at the Jacob Javits Center. Take a look.
This tech trade show is geared to a specific audience, the broadcaster. NAB puts on display in this two-day event a diverse collection of items that would benefit any news organization. From news gathering vehicles, to video editing software, to sound booths and audio equipment, to lights and things not so high-tech but still very much important, like office furniture.
Before the disaster or after the disaster, we are using data casting technology to provide the people about the disaster-related information to make them prepare for the disaster. Where is the shelters, where they can get the medical treatment and the food supply after the disaster, those kind of things. We are providing that information through the data casting on TV.
So today we're showing off, the new thing we're showing is our quad matrix. It's a modular system of our individual matrix units. So you can have a big, you can have a large source. You can use these quad Fresnel lenses to make it punchier, or you can take them out, and this is compatible with a number of soft boxes. So like a 5-foot or a 7-foot octa. So you could use it as a soft light or as a harder light. And it's and again, it's modular, so you can pull a single unit out, just 4 screws, and attach it to a yoke, and then use it that way as well.
So Unilumin is one of the largest manufacturers of LED in the world. This happens to be a 0.9 millimeter LED wall. So a 3x3 array of this product, which is U-panel, is native HD. So this is a native HD direct view LED product. Right. So one of the things about direct view LED is it's very bright. It's so traditional displays and backdrops and things like that are LCD. So LCD technology is reflective. So if you see people walk in front of LCD displays, you see a reflection sometimes. Studio lighting and things like that reflect off of the screen. And then brightness also. So you can get really rich color out of these displays. So we can meet Rec 709 and beyond with this technology. You don't have the reflectivity. So it's a really, you'll see a lot of the broadcast studios that are out there have already adopted this technology into their broadcast sets.
Well, what VCC does is really radical. We believe that everybody in the world is walking around with the world's best ENG tool sitting right here in their pocket, other pocket, and of course that's a smartphone. And we believe that we can get a high quality live remote feed from anywhere in the world in just a few minutes over somebody's smartphone using the connectivity that they have, the device they have, without any downloads at all on the part of the interviewee. So this is a game-breaking technology. It's groundbreaking. We can bring in remotes. We can bring in audience aggregation the same way, and we can actually connect to people's control rooms, or we can produce programs without any control room at all using these remotes by smartphone.
Hello, we are with Benton White of the Whisper Room. Thank you for joining Eagle News.
Thanks for having us, Eliza.
Benton, share with us, what is the Whisper Room?
So the Whisper Room is a modular portable system that you can go in and record a broadcast. It's going to isolate the sound quite substantially. Today we have a 4-foot by 6-foot booth that we call it the Model 4872E. This is a double wall system that's going to help isolate. You can step on in here, and right when you walk in, you can kind of feel the difference.
Yeah.
So this is our studio light. It actually changes colors. We've got a lot of excuse me, guys. We have a lot of other optional features in the booth. This booth comes with a large window, so you can have visibility. It also comes with a series of these panels that you can move around to get the sound that you're looking for. It really helps with the reverberation inside a room. But all of our booths come standard with ventilation. It's going to help out cycle through the host room air so you can stay cool while you're doing your voiceover work. A lot of people use this for recording an audio book, or audiologists use them for hearing tests. There's a whole bunch of applications, really.
Okay, and they come in different sizes?
We have 26 different sizes and 2 levels of isolation. This is one of our smaller booths. They get quite big. Our largest is an 8 by 16 booth. You could actually fit a whole band in that if you'd like.
And if you want to record them?
And if you want to record them, you got it.
And you said it's modular.
This is modular, so each one of these pieces, they bolt together. So Eliza, you and I, we could actually assemble this whole booth in about 3 hours and tear it down in about half the amount of time.
Seeing the latest gear is not the only cool thing here, but the lectures on various topics given by speakers on stages strategically located throughout the venue.
To sustain one's relevance in this industry, one needs to keep up not only with the latest news, but also with the latest technology. But more importantly, delivering information with the sharpest detail, swiftness, and accuracy is the goal everyone here shares. From the NAB Show New York 2019, here in New York City, I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmont, 1 with 25.
Thanks, Eliza. That is today's Eagle News. Join us again tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I am Jennifer Polentan, and I am 1 with 25.